The stars stretched across the black canvas of space like tiny diamonds scattered by an ancient hand. Commander Vex Thor stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue planet grow larger in the viewing screen. His 3 hearts beat faster than usual. Earth, the world his people had conquered 300 years ago. The world they had taken from the humans and left empty. Now he was coming back to claim it properly for the Krell Empire. Vex Thor remembered the old stories his teachers had told him when he was young. Stories about how the Krell had arrived at Earth and found a primitive species barely capable of space travel. The humans had fought back, of course. Every species did. But they were weak and their weapons were old. The Krell had destroyed their ships and bombarded their cities until the humans finally gave up. Then the survivors ran away into deep space looking for new homes. The Krell had let them go. There was no profit in hunting down refugees when you already owned their planet, but the Krell had made a mistake back then. They had not stayed on Earth. They had moved on to other conquests and other worlds. Earth was just another trophy in a long list of victories. Now, 3 centuries later, the Empire needed Earth's resources. The planet was rich in minerals and water. It had good soil and a perfect climate. Most importantly, it was empty. Or so everyone believed. The fleet of 60 warships moved through Earth's orbit like sharks circling prey. Vex Thor's sensor officer called out readings from his station. There were old satellites floating in space. Ancient space stations that looked abandoned. Pieces of human technology left behind when they fled. Everything looked dead and quiet. Just as expected. Vex Thor gave the order to send down the landing parties. 6 dropships detached from the main fleet and began their descent through Earth's atmosphere. The commander watched on his screen as the ships passed through the clouds and approached what the old records called North America. This had been one of the largest human population centers before the war. Now it should be nothing but ruins covered in plants and dirt. The first dropship landed in the middle of what had once been a major city. The Krell soldiers emerged wearing breathing masks and carrying heavy weapons. They spread out carefully looking for any signs of danger. But what they found confused them. The buildings were not ruins at all. They stood clean and intact. The streets were clear of debris. Gardens filled with colorful flowers lined the sidewalks. Everything looked maintained and cared for. But there was nobody around. Not a single living being in sight. The squad leader activated his communicator and reported back to the flagship. His voice carried uncertainty. This was not what anyone had expected. Abandoned cities were supposed to be broken and decayed. These buildings looked like someone had cleaned them yesterday. But where were the people? Where were the maintenance crews? Vex Thor frowned as he listened to the reports coming in from all 6 landing sites. Every location showed the same strange pattern. Perfect preservation. No inhabitants. It made no sense. 300 years should have turned these cities into jungle-covered monuments. Instead, they looked ready for people to move back in tomorrow. The commander felt a cold sensation creeping up his spine. Something was very wrong here. Then the lights came on. All across the city, street lamps flickered to life. Building windows began to glow from inside. Electronic screens that had been dark suddenly blazed with color. The Krell soldiers jumped in surprise and raised their weapons. They spun around looking for threats. But still there was nobody. Just the lights turning on by themselves as if the city was waking up. Vex Thor gripped the railing of his command platform. His crew muttered nervously to each other. Automated systems, he told himself. The humans must have left some computers running when they fled. Maybe the systems detected movement and activated. That made sense. It had to be that simple. But then every screen in the city changed. They all showed the same image at the exact same moment. A human face appeared. She was young with dark hair pulled back from her face. Her eyes were calm and steady as she looked directly at the camera. When she spoke, her words came out in perfect Krell language without any accent or hesitation. "Welcome back to Earth," she said. "My name is Captain Lisa Morgan of the Human Defense Network. We have been expecting you." The words hit Vex Thor like a physical blow. Humans. Still here. Still alive. The commander's mind raced trying to make sense of what he was hearing. This was impossible. The Krell had driven humanity away centuries ago. There should be nobody left on this planet. Nobody except maybe a few scattered survivors living like animals in the wilderness. But this woman spoke with confidence and authority. She used their language. She said they had been expecting the Krell to return. Vex Thor activated his own communication channel and addressed the human woman directly. "Where are you?" he demanded. "Show yourself." Surrender now and we will consider mercy. Lisa Morgan smiled on the screen. Her expression held no fear at all. Commander Vex Thor, she said, using his name without being told. We are everywhere. We never left Earth, we simply went underground. While you and your empire forgot about us, we have been here the whole time. Building, learning, preparing. The Krell commander felt his 3 hearts beating faster now. Underground? Preparing for what? He ordered his sensor teams to scan below the surface of the planet. The results came back quickly and they changed everything. Deep beneath the ground, the sensors detected massive structures, cities and factories and power plants all hidden under miles of rock and soil. The readings showed technology that the sensors could barely identify. Power signatures far beyond what the Krell remembered humans possessing. How many? Vex Thor asked quietly. How many humans are down there? Lisa Morgan's smile grew wider. More than you can imagine, Commander. You see, when you attacked our world, you made a critical error. You assumed that defeating our military meant defeating our species. You thought that because we fled into space, we had given up. But humans do not give up. We endure, we adapt. We remember every wrong done to us. And we make sure it never happens again. Vex Thor looked at his officers. They all wore expressions of shock and confusion. This mission was supposed to be simple. Land on an empty planet, set up mining operations, begin extraction of resources. Instead, they had walked into something far more complicated. The humans had been here all along, hiding and watching, building an entire civilization underground where nobody could see them. The commander tried to maintain his composure. He was Krell. His people had conquered hundreds of worlds. They would not be intimidated by humans hiding in holes. He straightened his posture and spoke firmly. It does not matter how many of you there are. We control the orbital space. We have 60 warships. Your cities are trapped underground. Surrender now or we will seal you in forever. Lisa Morgan shook her head slowly. Oh, Commander, she said softly. You still do not understand. We are not trapped down here. We chose to be here. We left the surface empty and beautiful because it is our home. We wanted to preserve it. But make no mistake. We have been waiting for this day. The day when the Krell would return. And now that you are here, we can finally show you what 300 years of preparation looks like. The screen went dark. Lisa Morgan's face disappeared. Vex Thor stood in silence, staring at the empty display. Around him, his crew waited for orders. But the commander had no orders to give, not yet. He needed to understand what he was facing. He needed to know if the humans were bluffing or if they really did pose a threat. Deep in his core, Vex Thor felt something he had not experienced in many years. Something that no Krell commander ever wanted to feel. It was doubt. Doubt about whether this mission would be as easy as everyone had promised. Doubt about whether the Krell Empire really understood what they were dealing with. And underneath that doubt was something even worse. The faint, cold whisper of fear. Vex Thor paced across the bridge of his flagship, while his officers worked frantically at their stations. The comfortable certainty they had felt when arriving at Earth had evaporated like morning mist. Now everyone moved with nervous energy trying to understand what they were facing. The sensor teams ran scan after scan of the planet below. Each new result brought more disturbing information. The underground installations were vast beyond imagination. They stretched beneath every continent. Tunnels connected the hidden cities like arteries in a living body. Power plants generated energy signatures that made Krell technology look primitive. Manufacturing facilities produced materials at rates that seemed impossible. And everywhere the sensors detected sophisticated defense systems that could barely be identified, let alone understood. How many people could live down there? Vex Thor wondered aloud. His science officer looked up from his console with wide eyes. Based on the size of the installations, Commander? Billions, maybe tens of billions. The population could be larger than many core worlds of the Empire. The word settled over the bridge like a heavy blanket. Billions of humans, all hidden underground, all secretly building and growing while the Krell Empire believed Earth was empty. It seemed impossible, and yet the evidence was right there in the sensor data. Humanity had not fled Earth. They had buried themselves in it. They had turned the entire planet into a fortress. Vex Thor made a decision. He ordered a second landing party to investigate one of the underground entrances. The sensors had detected a large access point in the mountains of what the old records called Colorado. A team of elite Krell warriors would go down and see what they could learn. If humans wanted to hide in caves, the Krell would drag them out into the light. The dropship descended through thin mountain air and landed near a massive door built into the rock face. The door was made of metal that reflected no light at all. It looked like a piece of night sky cut out and placed in the mountain. The squad leader was named Krath. He had fought in 30 campaigns for the Empire. He had seen strange things on alien worlds, but this door made his skin crawl with unease. As the Krell soldiers approached the door, it simply opened. No sound, no warning. One moment it was closed and the next it was sliding aside to reveal a tunnel leading down into darkness. Krath activated his weapon's light and stepped inside. His squad followed close behind. They moved down the tunnel carefully, checking for traps or ambushes. But there was nothing. Just smooth walls and a gentle slope leading deeper underground. After walking for 10 minutes, the tunnel opened into a cavern so large that Krath stopped in shock. The ceiling was hundreds of meters overhead. It glowed with artificial light that mimicked sunlight so perfectly that Krath's eyes insisted he was standing outside. Below spread an entire city. Towers of glass and metal rose toward the false sky. Streets laid out in perfect grids connected buildings of every size and shape. Parks with real trees and grass occupied spaces between structures. Water fountains splashed in public squares. But again, there were no people. The city looked ready for inhabitants but stood completely empty. Vehicles waited at charging stations with nobody to drive them. Shops displayed goods in windows that nobody would buy. The whole place felt like a stage set waiting for actors who never arrived. Krath reported what he saw back to the flagship. His voice carried awe despite his training. Vexthor listened to the description and felt his confusion deepening. Why build such magnificent cities and leave them empty? Where were all the billions of humans the sensors detected? He ordered Krath to explore further and find answers. The squad moved through the underground city, examining buildings and systems. Everything was functional. Power flowed through the infrastructure. Air circulation systems hummed quietly. Computers processed data in silent rooms, but not one single human being appeared. Then Krath found something that explained part of the mystery. In a large facility on the edge of the city, he discovered machines. Thousands of them. Robots of every design worked in coordinated silence. Some assembled complex electronics. Others maintained the buildings and streets. Still others tended the gardens and parks. The entire city was run by artificial intelligence and automated systems. Humans had built it all but did not need to be present for it to function. Krath sent images back to the flagship. Vexthor studied them carefully. These machines were far more advanced than anything in the Krell databases. They moved with precision and intelligence that suggested independent thought. Each robot seemed capable of adapting to new situations without direct programming. This was technology the Empire did not possess. Technology that should not exist. The screens on the bridge suddenly lit up again. Lisa Morgan's face reappeared, looking directly at Vexthor. "I see you have found one of our manufacturing centers," she said. "Impressive, is it not? We have been building for 300 years, Commander. Every day, every hour, never stopping, never slowing down. While your empire celebrated its victory over humanity, we were down here working, creating, advancing." Vexthor stepped forward so the human woman could see him clearly. "What is the purpose of all this?" he demanded. "Why hide? Why build in secret? If you had this technology, you could have reclaimed Earth decades ago. You could have driven us away from your territory." Lisa Morgan tilted her head slightly. "Because, Commander, we were not ready. When you attacked us 300 years ago, you taught us an important lesson. You showed us that the galaxy is not safe, that powerful species will take what they want from weaker ones. That technology and military strength determine survival. We understood that lesson better than you could imagine, so we decided never to be weak again." She gestured and the screens changed to show different images. Factories producing starships. Research laboratories developing new weapons. Training facilities where combat robots practiced maneuvers. Universities where scientists worked on projects that made Vexthor's head hurt, trying to understand them. The scale was overwhelming. Humanity had turned its entire civilization into a machine dedicated to one purpose: making sure they could never be conquered again. "You ask why we waited?" Lisa continued. "Because we needed time. Time to surpass you. Time to develop technology so advanced that you could never threaten us again. Time to build weapons that would make even the mighty Krell Empire think twice before attacking. And now, after 3 centuries of patient work, we are ready. So we thank you for returning to Earth, Commander. Because now we can show you what humans become when you push them too far." Vexthor felt ice forming in his veins. This was not empty boasting. Lisa Morgan spoke with absolute confidence. She knew something he did not. Something his fleet was not prepared to face. He tried to keep his voice steady. You are bluffing. You may have built impressive cities underground, but you have no military fleet. Our sensors would have detected warships. You have nothing to threaten us with. Lisa Morgan smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Your sensors, Commander, are 300 years out of date compared to our technology. You cannot detect what we do not wish you to see. And we have been very careful about what we allow you to discover. But if you insist on proof, we can provide it. Just know that once we reveal ourselves, there will be no going back. You will have to make a choice about what happens next. Before Vexthor could respond, another person appeared on the screens beside Lisa Morgan. This was a man, older than the woman, with gray hair and lines around his eyes. He wore a different uniform covered in decorations and insignia. His bearing suggested authority and experience. When he spoke, his voice carried weight. Commander Vexthor, I am Admiral Jack Pierce of the Earth Defense Fleet. I am giving you one chance to reconsider your mission here. Take your ships and leave our system. Return to your empire and tell them that Earth is no longer available for conquest. Tell them that humanity has grown beyond their ability to threaten. Do this and we will let you go in peace. Vexthor's pride flared hot in his chest. A human admiral was giving him orders? Telling the Krell to retreat? This was unacceptable. He drew himself up to full height. We do not take orders from conquered species. Earth belongs to the Krell Empire by right of victory. If you wish to negotiate surrender, we will consider merciful terms. But we will not leave. Admiral Pierce looked sad. He sighed and shook his head. I was afraid you would say that. Very well, Commander. You want proof of our capabilities? You shall have it. But remember this moment. Remember that we gave you the chance to walk away. What happens next is your choice, not ours. The screens went dark. Vexthor stood breathing hard, trying to calm the emotions swirling through him. His tactical officer suddenly shouted from his station. Commander, sensors are detecting multiple contacts appearing throughout the system. Ships, hundreds of them. Thousands. Vexthor spun toward the main viewing screen. What had been empty space moments before was now filled with vessels. Sleek warships materialized from nowhere as if they had been ghosts waiting to become solid. They appeared above Earth. They appeared behind the Krell fleet. They appeared in every direction surrounding the 60 Krell warships completely. And they kept coming. More and more ships entering reality from some hidden dimension, each one bristling with weapons that the Krell sensors could not identify. The bridge fell silent except for the bee. The human fleet hung in space like a school of metal fish surrounding much larger prey. Vexthor counted the vessels appearing on his sensors and stopped when he reached 5,000. There were more, but the numbers no longer mattered. His 60 warships were completely outnumbered and outpositioned. Every strategic advantage the Krell had possessed 15 minutes ago had vanished like smoke. Vexthor's second-in-command approached him carefully. Sub-Commander Thelkor was an experienced officer who had served the Empire for 4 decades. His voice was quiet when he spoke. Commander, we should withdraw. We cannot fight this many ships. We need to return home and report what we have found. The Empire must know about this threat. Pride warred with survival instinct in Vexthor's mind. The Krell did not retreat. They did not run from inferior species, but looking at the tactical display, he knew Thelkor was right. This was not a battle they could win. This was not even a battle they could survive. The smart choice was to escape with what forces remained and warn the Empire. Yet pride made him hesitate. To flee from humans would bring shame. To return home defeated would mark him as weak. While he hesitated, the main screen lit up again. Admiral Jack Pierce appeared, but this time he was not alone. He stood on what appeared to be the bridge of a warship. Behind him, Vexthor could see crew members working at stations that looked far more advanced than anything on a Krell vessel. The technology visible in that brief glimpse made the commander's stomach twist with unease. You wanted proof, Commander, so here it is. Admiral Pierce gestured, and the image changed to show exterior views of the human fleet. The ships were beautiful in a deadly way. Smooth hulls that reflected starlight. Weapon arrays that pulsed with contained energy. Shield systems that distorted space around them. Everything about their design spoke of purpose and efficiency. These were not ships built for exploration or trade. These were weapons designed for one thing only. War, do you understand now? Pierce continued. Every vessel you see was built underground on Earth. Every weapon system was designed by human engineers. Every piece of technology represents knowledge we gained through 3 centuries of dedicated research. We did not waste time on conquest or empire building. We focused everything on one goal: making sure we could never be victims again. Vexthor found his voice, though it came out rougher than he intended. How did you build all this without us knowing? The Empire has scouts. We monitor this sector. Someone should have detected construction on this scale. Lisa Morgan stepped into view beside Admiral Pierce. Because we built it underground, Commander. Every ship, every weapon, every factory, all hidden beneath Earth's surface where your scouts never thought to look. You see, the problem with empires like yours is arrogance. You assumed that because you defeated us once you had nothing more to fear from us. You assumed we would stay defeated. You never considered that we might spend every day working to surpass you. The words stung because they were true. The Krell had dismissed humanity as irrelevant after driving them away. The Empire had moved on to other concerns. Nobody had bothered to check if humans still existed on Earth. Why would they? Conquered species stayed conquered. Except apparently humans did not follow that rule. Admiral Pierce spoke again, his tone becoming more serious. Commander Vexthor, you now face a choice. Option 1 is simple. Order your fleet to leave this system immediately. Return to Krell space and inform your leaders that Earth is defended. Tell them humanity is no longer weak. Tell them that any future attempt to claim our world will be met with force beyond their ability to resist. Choose this option and you live. Your crew lives. Everyone goes home. Vexthor waited for the second option, though he dreaded hearing it. And if I refuse, he asked, then we demonstrate why 300 years of preparation matters. Admiral Pierce's expression remained neutral, but his eyes were hard. We destroy your fleet. Every ship. Every crew member. Then we send the wreckage back to Krell space as a message. The message will be clear. Earth is ours. Anyone who challenges that claim will share your fate. Silence fell on the Krell bridge. Every officer had stopped working to listen to the exchange. They all understood what was happening. Their commander was being given an ultimatum. Surrender or die. No third option existed. The humans had made that very clear. Sub-Commander Thelkor spoke quietly. Commander, we should accept. There is no shame in withdrawing from an impossible situation. The Empire needs to know about this. Our deaths would serve no purpose, but Vexthor's pride would not release its grip so easily. He looked at the tactical display, studying the human ships, searching for any weakness. There had to be something, some flaw in their formations, some gap in their coverage, but he found nothing. The humans had positioned their fleet perfectly. Every angle was covered. Every escape route was blocked. They had thought of everything. How do I know you will let us leave? Vexthor asked. How do I know this is not a trick? You could destroy us the moment we turn away, Lisa Morgan answered. Because, Commander, we are not like you. We do not attack those who retreat. We do not pursue fleeing enemies. We believe every species has the right to exist in peace, but we also believe in defending what is ours. You came here to take our world. We are preventing that. If you leave now, you demonstrate wisdom. If you stay, you demonstrate foolishness. The choice seems obvious to us. Something in her words made Vexthor pause. She had said they did not attack retreating enemies. That implied mercy. That implied restraint. These were not qualities the Krell associated with military power. Strong species took what they wanted. Weak species begged for mercy. But humans seemed to operate under different rules. They were strong enough to destroy the Krell fleet completely, yet they offered a chance to leave peacefully. Why? Admiral Pierce must have seen the confusion on Vexthor's face. You are wondering why we do not simply kill you, he said. The answer is simple. Because we remember what it feels like to be helpless. We remember watching our cities burn while we could do nothing to stop it. We remember the terror of fleeing into space, not knowing if we would survive. Those memories shaped us. They made us strong. But they also taught us compassion. We do not wish to become the monsters who hurt us. The words struck something deep in Vexthor's consciousness. He had never thought about the species the Krell conquered. He had never considered their feelings or their suffering. They were just obstacles to be overcome, resources to be claimed. But Admiral Pierce spoke of memory and emotion. He spoke of choosing not to become cruel despite having the power to be cruel. These were concepts foreign to Krell military doctrine. Vexthor made his decision. He would accept the offer. He would retreat and report to the Empire. But before giving the order, he needed to know one more thing. Admiral Pierce, if we leave, how long will you let us live? How long before your fleet comes to Krell space seeking revenge for what we did 300 years ago? Admiral Pierce shook his head. We will never attack your worlds, Commander. We are not conquerors. We do not seek empire or territory beyond our own system. All we want is to be left alone. If the Krell Empire can respect that, if you can accept that Earth is permanently off limits, then we will have no conflict. But if you return with a larger fleet, if you attempt invasion again, then we will respond with overwhelming force. That is not a threat. It is a promise. Lisa Morgan added one final point. We are giving you this chance because we believe in redemption. We believe species can change and grow. 300 years ago, the Krell Empire hurt us badly. Today, you have the opportunity to make a different choice. You can be the commander who prevented another war. Or you can be the commander who started one you cannot win. Choose wisely. The screen went dark, leaving Vexthor staring at his own reflection in the blank display. Around him, his crew waited silently for orders. Sub-Commander Thelkor stood ready to implement whatever decision his commander made. The bridge felt heavy with tension and anticipation. Vexthor took a deep breath and straightened his posture. When he spoke, his voice was clear and steady. Contact all ships, order the fleet to break orbit and prepare for jump to hyperspace. We are leaving Earth. The mission is over. Relief washed across the bridge. Officers moved quickly to carry out the orders. The fleet began moving away from Earth slowly at first, then gaining speed as they headed toward safe jump distance. The human ships did not pursue. They simply watched as the Krell vessels departed, holding their positions, making no threatening moves, keeping their promise to let the Krell go. As the blue planet shrank in his viewing screen, Vexthor felt a strange mixture of emotions. Shame at retreating, relief at surviving, but mostly a deep sense of having encountered something profound. Humanity had changed the rules. They had shown that strength did not require cruelty, that victory did not demand vengeance, and somehow that realization made them far more terrifying than any weapon they possessed. The journey back to Krell space took 20 days. 20 days of silence and contemplation. Vexthor spent much of that time alone in his quarters reviewing the recordings his sensors had captured. Images of the underground cities, scans of the human fleet, data showing technology far beyond what the Empire possessed. Every piece of evidence confirmed the same conclusion. Humanity had evolved beyond Krell understanding. The crew was subdued. Warriors who had expected an easy conquest now understood they had narrowly escaped destruction. They spoke in quiet voices about what they had witnessed. About ships appearing from nowhere. About weapons they could not identify. About a species that should have been broken, but instead had become stronger than their conquerors. The mood aboard all 60 vessels was grim and thoughtful. Sub-Commander Thelkor came to visit Vexthor on the 18th day of their journey. He found the commander staring at holographic projections of Earth floating in the air before him. The planet rotated slowly, showing continents and oceans, peaceful and beautiful, hiding incredible power beneath its surface. You made the right choice, Thelkor said quietly. We would all be dead if you had chosen differently. Vexthor nodded slowly. I know, but I wonder if the Empire will see it that way. They will view our retreat as weakness. They will question my command decisions. Some may call for my removal from service, then they are fools. Thelkor moved to stand beside his commander. You saw the situation clearly and acted to preserve our forces. That is the mark of a good leader. Anyone who questions you does not understand what we faced. The two officers stood in silence, watching Earth spin. Finally, Vexthor spoke again. Tell me, Thelkor, in all your years of service, have you ever encountered anything like what we saw? Any species that turned defeat into such overwhelming strength? Never. Thelkor's voice carried certainty. Most conquered species accept their fate. They become part of the Empire or they die out. But humans did neither. They chose a third path. They chose to become unconquerable. I have never seen such determination, such focus. 300 years devoted to a single purpose. It is both impressive and terrifying. Vexthor dismissed the hologram with a gesture. What troubles me most is not their technology. It is their restraint. They could have destroyed us. We were helpless. Yet they let us go. Why? What species possesses the power to annihilate their enemies but chooses mercy instead? Thelkor had been thinking about this question since they left Earth. Perhaps that is exactly why they are so dangerous. They do not act from rage or hatred. They act from principle. That makes them unpredictable by our standards. We understand enemies who seek revenge. We understand those who want conquest. But humans want something else entirely. They want to be left alone. That simple desire, backed by overwhelming force, creates a situation we are not equipped to handle. When they finally arrived at the Imperial capital world, Vex Thor prepared himself for difficult questions. The fleet docked at the orbital stations above Krell Prime. Within hours, a summons came from the High Council. Vex Thor was ordered to appear before them immediately to explain why he had returned empty-handed. The council chamber was an imposing space. High ceilings covered in ancient carvings. Seats arranged in a circle around a central platform where those being questioned stood. 12 council members occupied those seats. Each one was old by Krell standards. Each one had served the Empire for decades. And each one looked displeased as Vex Thor entered. The Supreme Counselor spoke first. His name was Draxel, and his voice carried authority accumulated over 60 years of leadership. Commander Vex Thor, you were sent to claim Earth for the Empire. You were given 60 warships. You were expected to face no opposition, yet you return having accomplished nothing. Explain yourself. Vex Thor stood straight and began his report. He described arriving at Earth, finding the preserved cities, meeting Captain Lisa Morgan, discovering the underground civilization, encountering the human fleet. He presented sensor data and recordings. He showed images of technology the Krell could not match. He laid out everything clearly and thoroughly. The council members listened in growing disbelief. Several interrupted to ask questions. Are you certain this data is accurate? Could this have been some kind of illusion or trick? Is it possible your sensors malfunctioned? Vex Thor answered each question patiently. Yes, the data was verified. No, it was not an illusion. The sensors functioned perfectly. What they detected was real. When Vex Thor finished his report, silence filled the chamber. The council members looked at each other with troubled expressions. Finally, Draxel spoke again. If what you say is true, then we have a significant problem. We cannot allow a conquered species to possess greater military strength than the Empire. It sets a dangerous precedent. Other subject worlds might rebel if they believe resistance can succeed. Another council member named Zektar leaned forward. I propose we assemble a larger fleet, 500 ships, perhaps 1,000. We overwhelm the humans with numbers. Surely they cannot have built enough vessels to resist a force of that size. Vex Thor felt compelled to speak, though he knew it might anger the council. With respect, Supreme Counselor, that would be a mistake. The humans did not show us their full strength. They revealed only enough to convince us to leave. Admiral Pierce made it clear they have been preparing for 300 years. I believe they could destroy 1,000 ships as easily as 60. Perhaps more easily. Draxel's eyes narrowed. So you suggest we do nothing? We simply accept that Earth is lost? We admit defeat to a species we conquered centuries ago. I suggest we recognize reality. Vex Thor chose his words carefully. The humans do not threaten us. They made no demands. They seek no territory beyond their own world. They want only to be left alone. If we honor that wish, we lose nothing except our pride. If we attack them again, we risk losing much more. They have technology we do not understand, weapons we cannot counter, and most importantly, they have time. They can wait another 300 years if necessary. Can we say the same? The council erupted in argument. Some members agreed with Vex Thor. Others demanded immediate military action. Still others suggested diplomacy. The debate raged for over an hour. Voices were raised. Accusations flew. The normally dignified council chamber became chaotic with competing opinions. Finally, Draxel called for order. When silence returned, he addressed the council as a whole. This matter requires more consideration. We will reconvene in 3 days after reviewing all the evidence Commander Vex Thor has provided. Until then, I order that information about the human fleet be kept classified. We do not want to cause panic among the population. Vex Thor was dismissed. He left the council chamber feeling exhausted and uncertain. The Empire was not used to encountering problems it could not solve through force. The entire structure of Krell society was built on the assumption of military superiority. What happened when that assumption proved false? What happened when a conquered species became the conqueror? Over the following days, Vex Thor noticed changes in how people treated him. Some warriors approached him with respect. They understood he had made a difficult decision in an impossible situation, but others whispered behind his back. They called him coward. They said he should have fought regardless of the odds. They claimed a true Krell commander would never retreat from mere humans. The political divisions within the Empire were becoming clear. Traditionalists wanted war. They could not accept that the Krell might not be the most powerful species in the galaxy. Reformers saw an opportunity to change course. They argued that constant conquest had made the Empire large but also vulnerable. Maybe it was time to consider a different approach. On the third day, Vexthor returned to the council chamber. Draxel announced their decision. After careful deliberation, we have concluded that Earth will be designated as off-limits to all Krell forces. No ships will enter the Sol system. No contact will be made with humanity. We will pretend they do not exist and hope they extend us the same courtesy. It was not a glorious decision. It was not a proud moment for the Empire, but it was pragmatic. Vexthor felt relief wash over him. The council had chosen survival over pride. That took wisdom many warriors did not possess. But Draxel was not finished speaking. However, we also recognize that this situation represents a failure of our intelligence systems. We were caught completely unprepared. Therefore, I am establishing a new military research division. Its purpose will be to study human technology and develop countermeasures, not for immediate use, but for the future. Should the humans ever threaten us, we must be ready. Vexthor understood the implication. The council was accepting peace for now, but they were also planning for eventual conflict. The Krell could not imagine a galaxy where they were not dominant. They would work to regain their advantage, even if it took centuries, just as the humans had done. As Vexthor left the council chamber for the final time, he wondered if either species had really learned anything. Humans had suffered and grown strong, but would they maintain their restraint if they became too powerful? The Krell had been humbled but not changed. Would they eventually repeat their mistakes? The future remained uncertain, but one thing was clear. The galaxy would never be the same after what had happened at Earth. 6 months passed after the Krell fleet departed Earth. 6 months of careful watching and waiting. The humans monitored their sensors, constantly looking for any sign that the Krell might return with reinforcements. Admiral Jack Pierce spent long hours on the bridge of his flagship, studying reports from the outer system detection arrays. But space remained quiet. The Krell had accepted defeat and gone home. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, the human civilization began to relax. For 300 years, every person had lived with the knowledge that war might come at any moment. Children grew up learning combat skills alongside mathematics. Scientists developed weapons before medicine. Engineers built warships instead of passenger vessels. The entire species had been on a permanent war footing. Now finally they could breathe. Lisa Morgan stood in one of the observation domes, looking up at artificial sky that mimicked Earth's surface weather. Rain fell gently on the transparent ceiling, creating patterns of water that slid downward. She watched the rain and thought about everything that had happened. The confrontation with Commander Vexthor had been risky. If the Krell had chosen to fight, humanity would have won. But the cost would have been terrible. Lives would have been lost. Resources would have been wasted. The fact that they avoided conflict through demonstration of strength rather than use of it felt like a victory of a different kind. A voice spoke behind her. "You look troubled." Lisa turned to see Dr. Paul Grant approaching. The old historian moved slowly, but his mind remained sharp. He had been 12 years old when the Krell first invaded. Now he was over 300 years old thanks to medical advances humanity had developed. He had lived through everything. The initial attack, the desperate flight into space, the decision to return underground, the long centuries of building and preparing. He was one of the few people still alive who remembered what Earth looked like before the invasion. "Not troubled," Lisa said. "Just thinking. We spent so long preparing for war. Now that it did not happen, I am not sure what we should do next. We built a military machine capable of defending against any threat. But do we really want to remain a military society forever? Is that who we want to be?" Dr. Grant moved to stand beside her. Together they watched the rain. "That is the question every civilization must answer after a long conflict," he said. "How do you transition from war to peace? How do you teach people who only knew fighting to live differently? It will not be easy. 300 years is long enough that war preparation has become our culture. Changing that will take time." Lisa nodded slowly. "Admiral Pierce is already talking about converting some of our military factories to civilian production. Building ships for exploration instead of combat. Creating technology for improving life rather than ending it. But many people resist the idea. They say we should maintain our military strength. They worry the Krell might return or that some other species might threaten us. They are not wrong to worry. Dr. Grant's voice carried the weight of experience. The galaxy is dangerous. We learned that lesson harshly. But there is a difference between maintaining readiness and letting war define your entire existence. We can keep our defensive capabilities while also building a society focused on other values. The key is balance. A message came through on Lisa's communication device. She read it and smiled. Admiral Pierce wants to see me. Apparently, we have received a transmission from outside the Sol system. Something unexpected? Dr. Grant raised his eyebrows. From the Krell? No. From someone else entirely. Lisa made her way to the command center where Admiral Pierce was waiting. The large screens displayed a message that had been received by the outer system relay stations. The message was in a language humans had never encountered before, but their translation computers had managed to decode most of it. The contents were surprising. Admiral Pierce gestured to the screen. We are being contacted by a species called the Vorath. They are asking permission to enter our system. They say they are explorers seeking to establish peaceful relations with other civilizations. They detected our defense fleet and want to make sure we understand their intentions before approaching. Lisa studied the message carefully. This is new. In 300 years, no species except the Krell has shown any interest in Earth. Why now? Pierce pulled up additional data. Our intelligence suggests word has spread about our confrontation with the Krell. Other species in the sector are curious about the humans who drove away a major empire without firing a shot. Some probably want to assess if we are a threat. Others may see opportunities for trade or alliance. The Vorath appear to fall into the latter category. What do you think we should do? Lisa asked. The Admiral leaned back in his chair. I think we should be cautious but open. We cannot isolate ourselves forever. At some point we need to engage with the larger galactic community, but we do it on our terms. We make it clear that Earth is sovereign territory, that we will defend ourselves if necessary, but also that we are willing to establish peaceful relationships with species that respect those boundaries. Lisa agreed. Send them coordinates for a meeting location well outside the Sol system. Tell them we will send representatives to talk. But also make sure they understand that approaching Earth without permission will be considered hostile. Let them know exactly where our boundaries are. Over the following weeks, preparations were made for first contact with the Vorath. A small diplomatic vessel was prepared. Lisa volunteered to lead the mission along with Dr. Grant and several other specialists. They would meet the Vorath at a neutral location and assess their intentions. It would be humanity's first attempt at interstellar diplomacy. The night before departure, Lisa walked through one of the underground cities. Lights glowed softly in windows. People moved through streets going about their lives. Children played in parks under artificial stars. It all looked so peaceful, so normal. Yet she knew that beneath this normalcy lay incredible strength. Every person here had been raised understanding that their civilization existed to protect Earth. That purpose had unified humanity in ways that would have been impossible before the Krell invasion. But now a new chapter was beginning. Humanity was no longer just defending. They were starting to reach outward, to engage with the galaxy as equals rather than as victims or conquerors. It was both exciting and terrifying. So many things could go wrong, so many ways they could make mistakes. Yet Lisa felt hopeful. Her species had survived the worst and emerged stronger. They had chosen mercy over revenge. They had built something worth protecting. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The diplomatic vessel departed right on schedule. It was a small ship by military standards, but still impressive by the standards of most species. Sleek and fast with defensive systems that could protect against almost any attack. Lisa sat in the command chair watching stars stream past as they traveled to the meeting coordinates. Beside her, Dr. Grant reviewed files about the Vorath, trying to learn everything possible before the encounter. What do you think they want? Lisa asked. Dr. Grant closed his files and looked at her. Honestly, I think they want to understand us. We represent something unusual in galactic politics, a species that was defeated but refused to stay defeated, a species that became powerful but chose not to use that power for conquest. Most civilizations fall into predictable patterns, aggressive expansion or peaceful stagnation. We seem to be attempting something different. That makes us interesting, possibly valuable as allies, but also potentially dangerous if we ever change our approach. So we need to show them who we really are. Exactly. We need to demonstrate that our restraint is not weakness, that our desire for peace does not mean we can be pushed around. We defend what is ours absolutely, but we have no interest in taking what belongs to others. If we can communicate that clearly, we might establish productive relationships. The meeting with the Vorath went better than expected. They were a curious species, physically different from both humans and Krell. They asked many questions about Earth and human history. Lisa answered honestly. She explained what the Krell had done, how humanity responded, why they chose to remain on their homeworld rather than seeking revenge. The Vorath listened carefully and seemed impressed. By the end of the meeting, a basic agreement was reached. The Vorath would respect Earth's boundaries. In exchange, humanity would share some of their less sensitive technology. Both species would maintain communication channels. It was a small beginning, but it represented hope. Hope that humanity could find its place in the galaxy without becoming what they had fought against. When Lisa returned to Earth, she reported to Admiral Pierce and the Civilian Leadership Council. Everyone was pleased with the results. The Vorath contact had gone smoothly. It proved that humanity could interact with other species as equals. More importantly, it showed that the rest of the galaxy was starting to see Earth not as a target, but as a potential partner. That night, Lisa stood once again in the observation dome watching simulated rainfall. But this time she felt different, lighter somehow. For 300 years, humanity had carried the burden of survival. Now slowly that burden was transforming into something else. Purpose. Not just surviving, but thriving. Not just defending, but building. Not just remembering the past, but creating the future. Dr. Grant joined her as he often did,